the smoke on the horizon. The sky was heavy with ash, a bruise-colored veil stretching across the Texas plains. The wind carried more than dust. It carried silence, thick and absolute. Where once there had been life, children's laughter, clanging pans, the grunt of oxen, now there was only ruin. A crooked sign marked the edge of what was once Boone's Hollow, now just scattered bones and burnt timbers. Eliya Morgan stood at the edge of the well, staring into its darkness. Her knuckles were cracked, blood crusting in the lines of her palm. She had buried 4 bodies that morning. The ground was too dry, too hard, but she dug until her shoulders gave out. What else was there to do? Crying wasted water. Praying hadn't worked. Her husband, James, had left 16 days ago, riding east with a scouting party. They were supposed to return in 3. Raiders had come on the 6th. She never saw who struck the match, only the smoke rising from the chapel roof as screams tore through the night. She didn't scream. Eliya hadn't screamed in years. Now she lived in the charred skeleton of the livery, surviving on dried beans and rainwater caught in broken pots. Each morning, she woke expecting wolves or worse. Each night, she whispered into the black, "Come back, James." But the wind never answered. It was on the 17th day, just past high noon, that she saw the rider. At first, she thought it a trick of the heat, just another mirage on the shimmering horizon. But he came closer, the outline sharpening, bare-chested, dark-haired, the long spear across his back glinting under the sun. A Comanche, alone, her pole spiked. She dropped behind the wagon frame, grabbing the old rifle. Useless thing, half-rusted and missing its trigger guard. But it gave her courage. She waited. He dismounted 10 yards away. Didn't draw a weapon. Just stood there, head tilted, watching her with unreadable eyes. "I got bullets," she said, voice graveled from disuse. "Turn around." He didn't move, only glanced around, at the ruins, the fresh mounds of earth, the bloodstains too stubborn to scrub clean. "You are alone," he said quietly. His English was halting but clear. Her grip tightened on the rifle. "I don't need your help." He took a step forward. "You buried them alone." She didn't answer. "Where is your husband?" "Gone," she spat. "He'll be back. He'll kill you if you stay." Something in the warrior's face shifted. Not fear, but something sadder, quieter. "No one is coming back, hey?" She wanted to scream at him, to tell him he was wrong. But the words caught in her throat. "My name is Tahu," he said. "You cannot stay here. There is no food, no water, no weapons." "And what? You'll take me to your camp? Make me your prisoner?" "No," he said, stepping back. "I leave food. Then I go." He reached into his satchel and tossed a wrapped bundle at her feet, jerked bison meat and smoked corn. She stared at it like it might explode. Tahu mounted his horse again. "You bury well," he said, nodding at the rows of shallow graves. "That is not weakness." Then he turned and rode off, disappearing into the west like a ghost swallowed by the wind. That night, Eliya sat beside the dying fire, the meat untouched in her lap. She didn't cry. She didn't eat. But when she looked up at the stars, so sharp they seemed to cut the sky, she whispered not her husband's name, but the stranger's. Fires between strangers. The Comanche camp unfurled beneath a wide stretch of sky, dotted with buffalo hide lodges and ringed by distant hills. Smoke rose from cooking fires, mingling with the scent of pine and roasted maize. Children ran barefoot through the dust. Dogs barked. It was not a place for her, Eliya thought, but it was a place where she could breathe. 2 days had passed since Tahu returned. She hadn't expected him. She certainly hadn't expected him to bring a second horse, nor to gesture silently for her to ride. But something in her had shifted after he left the first time. Something brittle had cracked and fallen away. Pride, maybe, or despair. Now she sat beneath a sun-bleached canopy, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, her blistered feet soaking in a wooden basin. She had not spoken much since arriving. No one had forced her to. The people here eyed her curiously, but not unkindly. They had known worse things than a white woman with empty hands. Tahu was different here, quieter, yet somehow heavier, as if he carried the weight of the camp on his shoulders. Warriors deferred to him. Children followed him with admiration. Even the elders watched him with cautious respect. She hadn't asked why. Do you understand them? Eliya asked, her voice hoarse. She hadn't spoken all morning. Tahu sat nearby, carving an arrow shaft with a bone knife. Some words, he said. Not all. I meant, do you understand what they think of me? A white woman here. Tahu didn't look up. Some fear you, others pity, but most wait. For what? For time to decide. His honesty startled her. Eliya shifted, wincing at the sting of raw skin on her heels. And you? Have you decided? He paused, the knife in his hand stilled. You bury your dead, he said finally. You do not run. You look men in the eye. That's not an answer. It is the one I give. She almost smiled, almost, but it faded when a woman approached, tall, proud, with streaks of silver in her dark braid. Naeta, Tahu said, rising. My sister. Nahita's gaze swept over Eliya with clinical sharpness. She said something in Comanche, short, sharp. She says you smell like smoke and death, Tahu translated. Eliya blinked. She's not wrong. Naeta continued, this time softer. Her tone carried less judgment, more warning. She says I bring danger home. That white blood brings soldiers. That soldiers bring death. I'm not bait, Eliya said. Tahu shook his head. You are a storm cloud, Eliya, even if you do not want to be. Naeta laughed, her braided fringe swaying behind her like a banner of quiet authority. The sun dipped lower, painting the camp in amber and rose. That night, Eliya couldn't sleep. The lodge flap whispered with wind. Shadows danced on the walls from a distant fire. The soft murmur of voices outside was comforting in a strange, foreign way. She stepped out and found Tahu sitting alone by a small fire, sharpening a stone blade. You don't sleep much, she said, settling opposite him. Sleep is for children and fools. And which am I? Tahu's gaze lifted to hers. Neither. They sat in silence, the flames crackling between them. Tell me something, Eliya said. Why didn't you leave me to die? He didn't answer immediately. His hands slowed over the blade. Because I saw a woman burying strangers with her bare hands, he said finally. Because the land took everything from you and you still stood. Her throat tightened. No one had spoken to her like that. Not even James. I'm married, she whispered, more to herself than to him. I don't know if he's alive. Does it matter? He asked. It was not cruel. It was curious. She stayed into the fire. It used to. He leaned forward slightly, the firelight catching in his eyes. Then the wind has changed. She should have stood, should have gone back into the lodge, pulled the blanket over her head, and let the dark swallow her. Instead, she stayed, and in the silence between them, the embers glowed brighter. What the moon saw. Autumn had come in whispers, cool winds, golden grass, and skies the color of pewter. The Comanche camp moved southward with the season, chasing warmer ground and better hunting. Eliya rode beside Tahu, no longer a guest but not yet one of them. She had learned to braid her hair in their style, to ride bareback with steady balance, and to silence her breath when danger whispered through the trees. But the quiet between her and Tahu had grown louder. Some nights, he sat close by the fire, hands busy with carving or mending, while she watched him in the flickering light. Other nights, he kept his distance, eyes on the horizon, where something invisible always seemed to call him away. They spoke more, laughed sometimes, yet something raw and unspoken curled between them like smoke. Eliya knew she was standing on a fault line. One afternoon, while gathering water from the stream, Naeta approached without warning. The older woman crouched beside her, hands cradling a clay jug. You still look west when you think no one watches, Naeta said in slow, deliberate English. Eliya froze. I don't know what you mean. You wait for a ghost. Eliya didn't respond. Naeta dipped the jug. My brother is proud, but his pride has cracks. You fill them. I didn't come here to fill anything. Naeta gave a quiet, mirthless laugh. We never do. And yet, we become medicine or poison. You must choose. That night, the moon rose full and red. Eliya couldn't sleep. Memories gnawed at her. Jamesy's hand in hers, their wedding vows spoken beneath a dying sycamore, the warmth of his voice in the cold of winter. But those memories had softened at the edges, blurred with dust and hunger. She stepped out of the lodge. Tahu stood at the edge of the camp, silhouetted by moonlight. He did not turn as she approached. "I heard there was a sighting," she said. He nodded. "A white man passed through the fort. Scar on his cheek. Said he lost his wife to the plains." She swallowed hard. Her hand trembled at her sides. "James." Tahu was silent. "I should feel joy," she whispered. "Relief. Maybe even hope. But I feel nothing." He turned to her now. His eyes, dark and unreadable, searched hers. "You loved him." "I think I did. And now, I don't know who I am anymore." Tahu stepped closer. "You are not weak. You are not lost. I'm married," she said, the words coming out like a plea. "You are not his property." The words struck like a drumbeat in her chest. She looked at him, this man who had watched over her, respected her silence, seen her grief without flinching. She saw the scar on his shoulder from a war she would never understand, the calluses on his hands, the tenderness he never showed anyone else. A storm raged behind her ribs. "Tahu," she breathed. But he didn't wait. He reached for her slowly, giving her time to move, to deny what they both knew had grown between them. She didn't. When his lips touched hers, it was not fire, but warmth, steady and certain, like the first sun after a long winter. She melted into him, fingers gripping the fringe of his tunic. Her guilt fluttered, pale and weightless, but did not stop her. They moved together in silence, beneath the moonlight, where the prairie wind carried no judgment. The world faded, the war, the vows, the ruins behind her. Only this moment remained. Only the man who had never asked anything of her but truth. Later, as they lay side by side, wrapped in phase, Eliya stared at the stars and whispered, "I betrayed him." Tahu's voice came low. "Or you chose yourself." She turned her face into his shoulder, closing her eyes against the tears. In the distance, a wolf howled. Ashes of vows. The first snow came early. White flakes drifted silently over the plains, clinging to tents and firs, softening every edge. Eliya stood by the fire, shoulders wrapped in a buffalo cloak, watching the world turn to silence. Her breath left in little clouds, each one stolen by the wind. Inside her, the peace was uneasy. It had been 10 days since the night beneath the red moon. 10 days since she had crossed a threshold she could never retreat from. Tahu hadn't spoken of it again, not out of shame, but out of reverence. He watched her with the same patience he always had, but now his gaze carried something deeper, something more certain. And then the riders came. The alarm rose just after noon. 5 men, rifles strapped to their saddles, approaching from the east with the arrogance only soldiers wore. Eliya stepped out as the camp shifted. Warriors gathered, weapons drawn but not raised. Tahu stood at the front, expression unreadable. One of the riders dismounted. His coat was tattered, face unshaven, and a long scar cut across his left cheek. Eliya's heart stopped. "James," she croaked. His eyes found her. "Eliya," he said, voice rasping with disbelief. She staggered forward, snow crunching beneath her feet. Her mind flooded with images. Graves she dug, nights she nearly froze, the firelight on Tahu's skin. And now this man stood before her, not a ghost, but flesh and breath. He looked thinner, harder, but he was alive. James reached for her, but she stepped back. "I thought you were dead," she whispered. "I thought you were too," he said, "until I heard rumors. A white woman, alive in a Comanche camp." His eyes narrowed as they slid past her to Tahu. His jaw clenched. "Did they force you to stay?" "No," she said. "Then why didn't you run?" She exhaled slowly. "Because no one chased me." Jamesy's expression cracked. "You stayed with them." "With him." Eliya turned, meeting Tahu's gaze. He didn't flinch, didn't step forward. He simply waited for her truth. "I survived because of him," she said. "I healed he." James scoffed. "So you betted a savage." That's what you call healing. The words cut, not because they were crude, but because they came from the man who once vowed to protect her. You left me, James, she said, voice steady now. You didn't come back. Not for days. Not for weeks. You didn't even try. I thought you were gone. No, she said sharply. You thought of yourself. You ran. His hand dropped to his belt, fingers brushing the hilt of his knife. But Tahu moved before he could speak again. Calm, deliberate, positioning himself beside Eliya. Not as a threat, but as a wall. James looked at them both and saw what had changed. What had been broken, and what had been built. He turned away. I hope is worth it, James muttered. Is not a replacement, she replied. Is a beginning. James mounted his horse without another word. The riders followed him east, vanishing into the snowfall like smoke. Eliya stood still for a long time. Her fingers trembled, but her breath was calm. When she turned back to Tahu, he said nothing. He didn't need to. She walked to him, placing her hand on his chest. I buried the past in Boone's Hollow, she whispered. Let it stay buried. Tahu took her hand in his. The wind brought you hay. The earth let you stay. And you? She asked. He nodded. I choose you. As the snow thickened around them, she leaned into his warmth. Not as a widow, not as a prisoner, but as a woman who had faced death, betrayal, and grief, and chosen, finally, to live.